Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of A Gardener's Journey Homestead. I am Barbara and thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Here I talk about all things homesteading, gardening, cooking from scratch, food preservation, things around the house, you name it, we talk about it. But of course it is cold and wintry outside. So I'm in the kitchen today and this video is about how to make a sourdough starter. I've been asked to do this video, so I'm gonna finally do it. Of course, it'll be over several days because it takes that many days. And the goal is to try to get a starter within 5 days. We're gonna see if we can make it work, right? So you guys have seen me post all about me making sourdough bread. I usually make it once a week, a sourdough bread loaf, so that we can do sandwiches, toast, things like that. And I've fallen in love with that method. It works good, it tastes fresh. And I made my own sourdough starter. Did not have any knowledge of sourdough, did not have any experience with sourdough. Literally, I saw somebody talking about it on Instagram and I started researching and thinking, oh, let me try that. I had tried several yeast breads before and just wasn't successful for whatever reason. And so let me just tell you, bread is not the easiest thing to pick up. At least it wasn't for me. But the first time I did sourdough, it worked out much better than the first time I did yeast bread. So I do that way more often than I do yeast bread. And so today I want to walk you through how easy it is to start your own sourdough starter. Now, obviously you can go buy one like at a local bakery. You can order them off Etsy. They dehydrate the starter and it's dried, so you can do that, but you can also just make yours at home, and that's what I did. And if I can do it, you can too. So I want to make sure that if you're looking forward to having some fresh sourdough bread at the end of the year, beginning of next year, and all next year, and be able to make your own bread at home, then this video is for you. So one of the first things I want to do is show you the book that I use as a resource. So I've showed this book before. This is Artisan Sourdough Made Simple by Emily Raffa. You can get it on Amazon. But this is the only book that I've used so far since doing sourdough. And it's a great beginner's guide. This is what I followed in order to make my sourdough starter. Now, the first time I tried to make starter, it didn't work in the time frame because I was using the wrong flour and I didn't know that. But as soon as I switched flour and did it went just like the way it was supposed to. And I've started starters, I think, 3 times so far. So I've done it more than one time, so I feel pretty confident that I can show you how to do it. So it's going to take, anywhere from 5 to 7 days of a process. I'm going to show you the way that I have done it that has been successful. So what you're going to need is a clean jar. So I just have a mason jar here, and I like the wide. This is a pint jar. I like the wide just because it's easier to get in and out of in your sourdough, but you can certainly use a regular amount. So you're going to need a vessel or something like that. You are going to need like a digital scale, a kitchen scale. You can get these off Amazon for probably 15 bucks or so. Because when it comes to sourdough recipes, it's going to be in grams. Why? I think it's just because what they did back in the olden days or whatever. So it's always going to be in grams. And so it's really important that you have a digital scale and not have to convert every recipe you come across to cups and ounces and things like that. Okay. And then you just need flour and water. And that's the beauty of sourdough, is that it can be a little bit more sustainable because one, you should always have water. And then the likelihood of you having flour is probably greater than you may be having some active yeast or whatever. So flour and water is all it takes. And sourdough is really good for your gut health. It's like a probiotic or whatever. And so that's one of the things, like my husband, he loves bread. But when he eats the sourdough, it doesn't make him sleepy. It doesn't make him feel heavy. It's just a good thing for your gut system and things like that. So let me I don't even have to get set up because really all we need is flour and water. But let me bring you closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I have my scale and I have the jar. So we're going to add 60 grams of whole wheat flour. This is how you start it, is with whole wheat flour. And so I just have my whole wheat flour here, and let me turn this on my scale. You want to make sure that you tear it out, T-A-R-E, and just make sure that it's on 0. So usually there's going to be a button with a T on it that you can just, you know, make it 0 there. And then I'm just going to add 60 grams of whole wheat flour. So I'm going to plop this in here at 17. I just keep adding until I get to 60. And you want to be as exact as you can. Again, and we're going to do what we call a 1-to-1 ratio. So we're going to do 60 grams of whole wheat flour and 60 grams of water. Okay, we're at 60 grams of flour, whole wheat flour. So we're going to tear that out. And now we're going to add our water. And this is where you have to be careful. Okay, right at 60. Perfect. So then I have my little sourdough spatula. You don't have to use this. I did not start off with this. I started off with a fork, right? Just to mix it up. So I'm just gonna mix it up here. Okay. Okay, so you can see this consistency. It's like thick and pasty. So let me see if I can show you. It's thick and pasty, right? So that's how it starts off. And I'm showing you this because I want to make sure that when you do yours, you know that you're doing it the right way. So all I did was I added 60 grams of whole wheat flour, 60 grams of water. That's it. And so we're going to put a lid on this, but we're not going to secure the lid. We're just going to lay it on there, right? So we're just going to place the lid on it like that, loosely. And then all we're going to do is set it down. That's it. And then we're going to do the exact same thing tomorrow, okay? So for the first 24 hours, you're just going to let it sit there, hang out, and do its thing. Now, I have it on a heat mat. I don't have the heat mat plugged up, but I will plug it up just because it's cooler in my house, just because it's so cold outside. But in the summertime, then, you know, you don't, I don't usually need a heat mat. So I am going to plug that up. And then I'll come back tomorrow, and I'm going to roughly try to do it around the same time. And I'll show you day 2. I'll show you what it's looking like. And then I'll just do that each day, and we will kind of go from there. And I'll be talking to you more about, you know, the benefits of sourdough. And again, showing you how it's supposed to look, how it's going to get there, and all of that good stuff. So we'll keep going day by day. And just like that, we're going to have some sourdough starter that we can use. And then it's just about keeping it active after that, which is really, really hard to kill your sourdough starter. So once you have it, I think the one that I have now, I have had, I want to say I started this, I want to say it was around the holidays last year. I have to go back on my, it wouldn't be on my videos, but maybe when I made my first bread. I have to go back and look and see when I did it. But I've had my sourdough starter for months, and I haven't killed it yet. So all good. I'll see you back tomorrow. Hey y'all, it's day 2, and so we're gonna check on our starter, and I want to show you what it's looking like. So hopefully you should be able to see that there's a little bit of liquid, so you can see that it's starting to do its job. And this is the day that we do nothing. So this is day 2. And so when you first put your starter mix together like we did yesterday, you're going to let it rest or do its thing for 48 hours before we start to feed it. So we don't start to feed it until day 3. So there's nothing for us to do today. I just wanted to show you. You want to look at it, see if it's doing its thing. Also, you'll see like sometimes it'll look like little black dots. That kind of lets you know that it's working. If you don't see the black dots, that's perfectly fine, because it could have been doing this thing while you were sleeping. You just didn't catch it at the right time. But you can see, again, there is some liquid there, and you can see it's not as pasty. and thick and dry as it was before. So the microbes are feeding on itself, the sugars and all that. You know, I'm not gonna say I don't understand fermentation, but I don't know it to the level of detail where I can tell you scientifically all the stuff that's going on, except that the microbes are working, it's fermenting, and the sugars are kind of feeding on itself. That's kind of my best explanation for that. But again, if you get that book that I told you, then you'll be able to get all the detail if you're really scientific. But this is day 2. You can see what it looks like. And so we're just gonna put the lid back on, give it another 24 hours, and then tomorrow on day 3 will be our first time feeding it. So I'll check back in with you tomorrow. Okay, welcome back. It's day 3, and so we're gonna check on our starter, and let me just show you what it's done in 48 hours. Can you see those bubbles? It has been doing its job. So you can hopefully see that very good on the camera, all those little bubbles and open pockets. That's exactly what you want to see. So now we're going to start feeding it. So remember, on day 1 we did 60 grams of whole wheat flour and 60 grams of water. Day 2 we did not do anything but look at it, let it rest. So now it's day 3. We are going to discard. That means just take out half of this, and it's going to look stretchy, right? We're going to take out the discard, and then we're going to feed it. And so now we're going to feed it 60 grams of bread flour, 60 grams of water. You can use all-purpose flour, but for me, bread flour works quicker and better, so that's what I've started doing. On my first one, I did all-purpose flour. Just make sure if you do all-purpose flour that you're using an unbleached all-purpose flour, okay? So just make sure that you're using an unbleached. So you can do all-purpose because, of course, that's easily available. You can find it. You probably already have it in your house. But for me, I like bread flour better, so that's what I use. And that's what I bake my bread with, is bread flour. So I keep my starter with bread flour, and I bake with bread flour. So we're going to discard this. And I am normally... And this is not the discard that you want to save. Now, once your starter is up, bubbly, active, and you have a permanent starter, your discard, you can use it for pancakes, muffins, things like that, waffles. So you can use that discard and bake with it. But our starter is not ready yet, so we're not going to keep this discard. But you'll see that we're going to get into a cycle. You feed, you discard. You feed, you discard. So we're going to take about half of this out. And I am going to do it on a, normally I just do it like in the sink down the drain. I'm going to do this on a plate so that you can see the consistency. Hopefully you can kind of see. It's like real stretchy, like. So you can kind of see what's left. There's not much left in it at all. There's not much left in it at all. You can see the part that I have on the plate, and I'm just going to throw this away. I just did this so that you could see it. So now we're going to feed this. Again, you can see there's not much in there, and it doesn't take much. But we're going to feed this 60 grams of bread flour. 60 grams. Let's turn our scale on. Make sure it's on 0. It's 30. Perfect. Right at 60. Right at 60, if you can see that. Now, we're going to put it back on 0 again, and we're going to add 60 grams of water. I had already put some water in here, so let's. You got to be careful towards the end, because a little bit of water is like a few grams. A little bit more. Okay, perfect. Right on it. So then we're just going to stir this up I don't know what my spatula is, so we're just going to use a fork. Remember I told you can use a fork, and you're going to just mix it in together. And already it's a different consistency than it was on day one. Remember on day one, it was hard and it was stiff. Just mix it all in together. You can see the consistency there. It's going to keep doing its thing. And then we're just going to pop the lid back on. Put it back on our heating mat. That's it. So now we'll let it do its thing for another 24 hours. We'll take a look at it on day 4. I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like, and then we're going to feed it again. I'm hoping that by day 5 we'll have an active starter, but it can take anywhere from 5 to 7 days. But I have a feeling we'll have an active starter on day 5. We will see. So I'll be back tomorrow and let you know how it's going. Hey everybody, welcome back. It is day 5. And so I did record yesterday, but I'm going to tell you what happened. So day 4, when I looked at my starter, it looked just like it looked today. We were on our way and I had plenty of bubbles. So let me show you what it looks like now at day 5. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll focus in, but basically the starter is ready. Just like that, like I told you in 5 days. So yesterday when I looked at it, it was already bubbling. I fed it 60 grams of bread flour, and 60 grams of water. And so this is day 5. And so I can tell that it's ready. And I also am smelling it. It should smell like very, it shouldn't smell pungent or bad. It's just a nice, like a bread smell is the best way I know how to describe it. If it smells like foul or odorous, it's not ready. You're not doing something right. Okay. Another way that you can test your starter to see if it's ready is to put a tablespoon of your starter in water and see if it floats. Right. So because this starter, again, you can also tell that it's risen. If you can kind of see right there, it's doubled in size. So remember, it was like down here when we did it, and now it's here. So that's another sign that your starter is ready, is that it's doubling in size. You have bubbles, which you can tell it is active. Now, once it rises, it'll start to fall. You want to use your starter when it's most active, when it's at its peak or at its height, right? This was hasn't been fed in 24 hours, but as I've been watching it, I know that it rose and now it's starting to come back down again, right? So we'll do the test and see if it works, but it may not, just because it's not as active. So let's pour some water in a cup. And let's just see. Let's just see what happens. So I took like a teaspoon of the starter. I put it in water, and you can see that it's floating, meaning it's not sinking to the bottom. That means it's active and it's ready to go. Just like that. It's just that simple. In 5 days, we made a sourdough starter. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to discard half of this, and then I'm going to feed it again, and then I'm actually going to put it in the refrigerator because I'm not about to bake. Now for you, if you're doing this along with me and you want to go ahead and bake your first recipe, then go ahead and do that. Do it after you feed it and let it rise again, right? So let it double in size. You're going to see the bubbles. Just don't know if it's clear enough where you can see the bubbles. But you'll see like little small bubbles, and then once you get that, then you can go ahead and bake your first loaf of bread. You can see that I already have bread that I have made here that's actually about to go in the oven. I use my other starter for that. So I'm going to discard, feed this one more time. I'm actually going to stick it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to bake again. This will just be like an extra starter now. So maybe in a week or so I'll bake. I want to try sourdough bagels. I may take you along with me if I try that. I want to try sourdough bagels, and I also want to try English muffins. So now I have 2 starters and I'll have double of what I need. And you can see it's still floating. So that's the float test. You know that your starter is active and ready to go. So in terms of what you do from here, once you have your starter, if you're not going to be baking all the time, like every day or every other day, then store your starter in the refrigerator. I store mine in the fridge, and I take it out once a week and I feed it. I put it back in the fridge. Usually I'm baking bread at least once a week, but if for some reason I'm not, I still take it out of the fridge. I discard, I feed, I put it back in the fridge. So I'm feeding it once a week, right? There have been times I've gone 2 weeks without feeding my starter. It's hard to kill it. I do the same thing. If it's been 2 weeks, you may see something settling on the top of it called hooch, H-O-O-C-H. And it's like, you can see like where the liquid has kind of risen to the top and may look like a little brown or something. It's not bad. Just discard, feed again, and your starter will become active. If for some reason it is moving slow to activate, then feed on an every 12-hour schedule, right? And you'll get your starter back just like that. Like, it's hard to kill it. In a year, I haven't killed mine. And I've been on vacation. I have forgotten to feed it. But usually when I'm in town, I'm feeding once a week, whether I'm baking or not, and I stick it back in the fridge. Just that simple. I don't usually keep a lot of my discard just because if you're not going to use the discard, within that week or so, it doesn't make sense to use it. But when I know I'm going to make like, sourdough waffles, pancakes, biscuits or something like that, I'll keep the discard. But if not, I just discard it and keep it moving. So I hope that you found that easy and super helpful. Literally in 5 days, we made an active sourdough starter. If I can do it, you can do it too. All you gotta do is do the exact same thing that I showed you on this video. So get you a clean mason jar. You're gonna start with whole wheat flour. Make sure you have a digital scale. You're gonna get it started, wait 48 hours, and then feed it. And by day 5, you should hopefully have an active starter, especially if you're using bread flour, and especially if you're keeping it warm. If for some reason you don't have one in 5 days, give it to 7 days, but I guarantee you it's gonna work if you do exactly what I showed you. So thank you guys so much for going along. I'm about to put some bread in the oven and bake us some fresh bread. But let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Let me know if you're going to try it, and I cannot wait to hear about your first sourdough bread making. Until next time, see you soon.